Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Odds and Ends, our Monday betting recap for this past week 6 in college football, week 5 in the NFL season. Brought to you by Bet.NOLA.com and Caesar Sportsbook. I'm Jim Derry, sports betting writer for Bet.NOLA.com, along with Devin Jackson, who's the sports digital content editor here at NOLA.com. Zach Ewing's a bit under the weather today, so I'm filling in as host, and we hope Zach gets better soon, and we'll be back maybe even for Tuesday's Fantasy Roundup show with Spencer the Guru Urquhart. Let's dive right into the weekend of football. Devin, we expected it to be a crazy Saturday and Sunday with several marquee matchups. And although my picks once again were a gift to those who bet against me, the football gods did not disappoint.
Yeah, it was a great weekend of football, especially college football. Pretty much every slate had fantastic finishes. Obviously you had Texas, Oklahoma going down to the wire, Ole Miss versus Arkansas in a surprise shootout game. Then, Penn State, Iowa lived up to expectations, a very crazy game there. And then the nightcap, Texas A&M, Alabama, did not expect that one to happen. But, upsets in college football happen all over the place. And Alabama obviously is not kind of away from that. So, it was a great week in college football. NFL slate was pretty solid as well yesterday too. So can't really have too many complaints. It was a really good weekend of football.
It was a mixed bag for the home teams. LSU just laid an egg, and it's now the second straight week in a row that they lose to an SC opponent. They're in deep trouble going forward. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, throughout the week. Our great reporters here at NOLA.com will be talking about it, but you can't deny that Coach O he's beyond the hot seat. His butt's in a boiling pot of water, and he's in big trouble. We're going to talk about that. I actually have on Datitude on Monday afternoon, late Monday afternoon. We're going to have Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers, on, so it'll be interesting to hear what he has to say. But what I think you talk about Texas A&M, Alabama. And interestingly enough, Devin, I think that and we'll get into the slides. In fact, you can go ahead and put up slide 1. You look at Alabama and their loss to Texas A&M, and I think, Devin, they're in, for the first time in a while, they're in serious jeopardy of missing out on a college football playoff, because if you look, they go, even if they run the table the rest of the way, which I think most people would expect them to do, they're going to likely get into the SEC championship game against a Georgia team that I think for the first time we can say that I think Georgia's clearly a better team than Alabama right now.
Yeah, I think this is definitely the case where you can confidently say that. Their defense is clearly the best in the country. The offense doesn't need to really do a whole bunch, but they can get things done when they need done. And Alabama can't stop anybody, apparently. Florida opened up, I think, a Pandora's box of how to attack Alabama's defense. You get those linebackers going in different directions. You attack some of their weaker point of their secondary. And they gave up a ton of yards and big plays. And, looking at Georgia, you don't necessarily expect them to be explosive, but they can make explosive plays. And their defense is just that good enough where they don't really need to score more than a touchdown or two to win the game. And, Alabama showed a lot of holes on Saturday night. I know it was a tough environment. Texas A&M is a tough environment, but a team like Texas A&M that has struggled to really get going this year, to lose to them on the road in the fashion that they did, giving up a ton of yards, a ton of big plays, it's not a good look for them going forward in the SEC. So it'll definitely be interesting to watch how Alabama continues to go through the rest of the schedule, because I don't think they're going to have too many more hiccups, if any, throughout the rest of the schedule. But that Georgia Alabama SEC potential title game, that's going to be big. And if Alabama can't win that, they're definitely missing out on the playoff.
You see, I can't wait to go through all this stuff, and it's hard to believe we're at the halfway point of the college football season. That's how fast this season is going by. We are right smack dab in the middle of it, and you see, I don't know if I agree with that, Devin. And we're going to talk more about this, I'm sure, on Thursday with Zach, because I know he agrees with you. But if Alabama runs the table and they play like a 2-point, 3-point heartbreaker with Georgia, who, to me, it's clear. I mean, I don't think there's any debate that Georgia is the best team in the country. I don't think anyone. I mean, you put Georgia and Iowa on the same field, Georgia's going to destroy Iowa, in my opinion. We may see it one day. I don't know. But if you talk about a team, if Alabama shows their Alabama going forward, which I'm not saying they will, because they certainly might have to skate by, and I'm not all that impressed with them. But if they roll through and become Alabama, and then they lose a heartbreaking SEC title game, again, money dictates the NCAA, and whether it's right or wrong, I can't wait to see what happens there. But and look, Ole Miss is putting up a fight. If Ole Miss runs the table, what happens if Ole Miss goes through the rest of SEC play, wins out, and then they don't have to play in the SEC championship? Do they make it into the college football playoff?
That's a good question. The thing with Ole Miss is that they do need Bama to win convincingly throughout the rest of the season, I think, for them to have a chance.
I agree.
Because if Bama struggles through the rest of the regular season, then Ole Miss's chances also decrease, because they need Bama to play like they're Bama throughout the rest of the season. But I don't think Ole Miss can be dismissed yet. I mean, I think right now they have a good chance of running the table. I mean, LSU is not a serious threat at all to be anybody right now. And that's just on the top of my head. I know for sure that's a team that they're going to play. I'm not sure about Ole Miss, the rest of their schedule, but the LSU one is probably the one, like, on paper is like, okay, maybe that could be a hiccup, but just the way they're playing, it's not really a threat. I believe they played maybe Auburn as well, but Auburn also not looking that impressive either. So, I mean, Ole Miss has a path for sure to maybe get in the back door of the playoff, but they really do need Bama. They have to rely on Bama and being able to win games convincingly, and then they have to win games convincingly as well. They can't play
here's the rest of their schedule.
40-point games.
Here's the rest of their schedule, Devin. They play Tennessee, LSU, Auburn, Liberty. They do have a tough one with Texas A&M, but it's at home. Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. You absolutely could see them running the table there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing I worry about them is that they get into a game where it's a track meet. Like that's the only thing that worries about, because their defenses the last 2 weeks have looked really bad. Simply put.
There's no question. You give a 51 to Arkansas, who obviously is more known for their defense, but just an exciting game. So there were several exciting games this weekend. LSU obviously wasn't one of them. Great comeback by Oklahoma, really without Spencer Rattler. So can we stop talking about Spencer Rattler for Heisman now?
Definitely. It's definitely at this point, it's between Bryce Young, Matt Corral, and probably Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati, I think. Well, I mean, you could probably throw in a few running backs as well. The Texas running back was really good as well, but they're not going to win enough games for him to be a serious contender. But those are the top three at this point. I mean, Bryce Young had a great game despite losing to Texas A&M, so I don't see his chances really decreasing too much. Matt Corral, I mean, if they run the table, I think it's probably his Heisman to lose. I
agree. I think he's got to be the leader in the clubhouse at the moment. Let's move on to the NFL, Devin. And we had some interesting matchups this weekend. It was an awful week for me picking. We'll talk about that later on. I mean, usually, even though I've been awful in the big bucks pick segment, I've been very good in my NFL picks column. This week, I was just awful all the way around. The only thing I got right, really, besides the Thursday game and the Sunday morning game, was the Saints and the Bears. So other than that, I was awful. So let's start with the home team. And obviously, the Saints did what they needed to do. They had to go. I've said it all week last week. This was a must-win, and in must-win games, I'm trusting Sean Payton to come up with a great game plan, and I thought he did. I thought this coaching staff did after having the worst performance maybe in the Sean Payton era. I thought that this Saints coaching staff did their best job of the season this week.
Yeah, they definitely came out with a very clear plan. And, involve Jameis Winston opening up the playbook a little bit. And it's something we talked about last week that needed to happen. And they were able to hit big plays. I know early on there was definitely concern about how the way the game was going to go. Because I mean, within the first 3 series, you had a fumble by Winston, then a bad interception. But when you go back and look at the interception, it was literally Andrews Pete stepping on Jameis Winston's foot that caused the errant throw. So you can't be too upset about that. But they came out ready to play. And, what if it wasn't for those turnovers, this game would have been much uglier, in my opinion, because the Saints defense did a really good job containing Washington all game long. Marshawn Lattimore had a fantastic game matched up against Terry McLaurin. And, Washington just isn't as good as a team people thought they are. They have Taylor Heineke, who was played much better above expectations, but he made mistakes yesterday. And the team, I feel like this is more the Saints team that needs what it needs to look like going forward. And getting a win to the bye week is huge, because then you're going to get a bunch of players back potentially. Michael Thomas will be eligible, Teron Armstead, Eric McCoy, offensive line wise, Marcus Davenport potentially, Traquan Smith. So you're potentially getting a lot of your starters back after the bye week, and then you play a Seattle team that's probably going to be without Russell Wilson. So, this next stretch of games for the Saints after the bye week is going to be even more important than those first couple ones that they played so far.
And don't forget about Will Lutz. Will Lutz, a good chance he comes back in week 7. We talked to Luke Johnson on the Datitude podcast on coming out Monday afternoon. He may be the most important of them all, with the way that these replacement kickers have been kicking. Double doink shanked 2 extra points yesterday. I mean, come on. The kicking game is really big for Sean Payton type teams, especially when you're talking about the opponents that are coming up in the near future. And there's probably going to be a lot of tight games. They're going to have to rely on their kicker. They're going to need Will Lutz back for sure. Let's look at some of the other games real quick. Packers, Bengals. You want to talk about missed kicks? There were 5 missed kicks in the matter of about from 2 minutes in the fourth quarter into overtime. Mason Crosby finally kicks the game winner there. Maybe the shocker of the day to me was the Eagles' comeback over Carolina. Not so much that the Eagles won, but the way that they won and had to come back. Jalen Hurts couldn't do anything through the air. All of a sudden, they just find a way to come back. It didn't help for Carolina that Sam Darnold threw 3 picks. And he's proving that without Christian McCaffrey, Devin, that team is mediocre at best.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Carolina is that they don't have a good offensive line. So that is their biggest – I mean, even when the Saints lost to the Panthers, if it wasn't for McCaffrey being able to get open quickly, if they weren't able to hit the quick passing game quickly and be able to get yards after catch, they struggle in that second half against the Saints. I mean, they got the strip sack in that game. And then you look at Sunday, when Sam Darnold is pressured, he's not a good quarterback. I mean, you can say about most quarterbacks, but when he's under pressure, he makes bad decisions. And Carolina is a team that relies solely on their defense to be able to win games. And it's going to be a really tough kind of next part of the schedule for the Panthers, because now they've lost a couple games. Now they're not exactly the same team they were, when they started 3-0. So now you're looking at this team and wondering, are they even going to be able to make a push for the wild card? I don't know. I can say that right now. No. To me, they still are a young team that's still trying to grow. And people were kind of overreacting a little bit to how they play early on. But, I mean, they played the Saints in the circumstances they were under. They played a bad Houston team. They played a bad Jets team. So, the benefit of a somewhat weaker schedule to start off, and now you're playing possible – I mean, I wouldn't call the Eagles contenders, but more – closer to the average than some of those bottom teams. I mean, you're going to see the real Carolina Panthers.
What was your favorite game out of the bottom 3 here on our NFL football recap? Because I don't want to run too long here, but Chargers, what a comeback by Justin Herbert. I thought Cleveland just botched their opportunity to win the game. They've got a first down. The Chargers had 3 timeouts left. they decided to just run the ball 3 straight times, even on 3rd and 10. I didn't understand the play calling there. Cleveland, to me, was playing not to lose and not to win. But then the Chargers score when they shouldn't have scored, probably, even though the Browns defense pulled Austin Eckler into the end zone. That was an interesting thing there. Then you got Cardinals beating up on the 49ers. Cardinals are now 5-0. I thought the 49ers defense played their best game of the year. It's a shame for them because they're now 2-3. And Kyler Murray, something was clearly wrong with him yesterday, although he found DeAndre Hopkins when he needed to. And then, to me, the stunner of, besides the Eagles coming back, the Bills, not that they won. I think a lot of people, not me, but I think a lot of people thought Buffalo would win this football game. I don't think hardly anyone would think Buffalo would dominate the Chiefs the way they did. And to me, the Chiefs were exposed. Which of those three was your favorite?
I kind of like seeing Buffalo, kind of be up on the Chiefs. I think finally we're getting to a point where the Chiefs are not the best team in the AFC. And I know it's kind of been clear this season already, but I think people are starting to realize like their defense is going to keep them from, they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot. I think that's how bad their defense has gotten. Now, every team that the Chiefs play this year are not going to be able to do what the Bills have done or, what the Ravens did in the second half to that game. Like, they don't have the personnel to do exactly the game plan that the Bucs kind of laid out in the Super Bowl. But I do think that it's concern for the Chiefs that they can't even, like a primetime game against a top opponent, like they couldn't even keep the game relatively close. I think that's the most concerning part for the Chiefs. But I think that was my favorite game kind of from a logistical standpoint because, you knew that the Bills had a good chance to win this game, but you didn't expect them to win by 18 on the road, plus a rain delay. You thought maybe the Chiefs were going to have some juice coming out of the locker room with that longer rain delay. Kind of the Bills rhythm messed up, but none of that happened. So I think that was definitely most surprising. But the funnest game of the day was definitely the Chargers and Browns, without a doubt.
I agree, and I found myself probably watching that as much as any other, and just watching the back and forth. The Browns play a 14-7 game the week before against, to me, almost an equally potent Vikings game. So anyone who saw 89 points coming, I want to talk to them and pick their brain because they're really good at picking over-unders if they had that one right. And then Bills Chiefs, something's not right with Patrick Mahomes. There's a lack of focus on that team. Now, look, we all know Steve Spagnuolo's defenses are terrible. How that guy keeps getting jobs from like 1 or 2 seasons back when he was with the Giants, when he had outstanding talent, why he's still a defensive coordinator, I have no idea, but their defense is horrible. And I understand that they've got some injuries. Frank Clark's banged up, and there was no Tyrann Mathieu. But still, they were a no-show to me. And Josh Allen's outstanding, but Mahomes looked like he didn't want to be there. Tyreek Hill's letting balls slip through his hands that turn into pick sixes. He can't get it open. He gets frustrated, and he ends up not being part of the game plan at all. And you're not going to win with Pringle, and now you got Josh Gordon, and they're just doubling up on Kelsey too. So they're locking down on Kelsey and Tyreek, and it's kind of showing you the game plan on how to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's working. So interesting to see how that goes forward. Tonight is an interesting game. Some people might not think it's interesting, but I do. Colts and Ravens, Devin, -7. The Ravens are -7, and I've been so awful. So anybody who wants to know what I think tonight so they can bet against me and win. Devin, I think the Colts not only have an excellent chance to cover, I think the Colts have a realistic chance to win this game. I think they're very don't just look at records. I know Lamar Jackson is outstanding and no one can catch him and he's this great talent, but Baltimore has been in some struggles. I think their big win over Denver. We don't know how good Denver is. Meanwhile, Indianapolis has had a brutal schedule. Carson Wentz has had another week to heal up a little bit. They showed what they can do against an average team. They beat up on Miami last week. I think this is a great spot for Indianapolis here. and they're getting to a point where if they want to remain relevant, they've got to find a way to win games that maybe they're not supposed to win, and maybe they do it on prime time here.
Yeah, I mean, this is the week they have to kind of win this game, because you can't continue to fall behind. I mean, I know it's the AFC South, and that division right now is probably one of the worst in football, just from top to bottom. But you got to find a way to win this game, and it's going to be tough because Lamar Jackson always puts on a show in prime time. That's just kind of what he does. He always saves his best for prime time. But the Ravens have kind of been sleepwalking the last few weeks. Their offense. I know they hit some big plays against Denver, but I mean, you look at the Detroit game, they probably shouldn't have won that game. So really, since that big win over the Chiefs in week 2, the Ravens haven't looked as sharp as you would like to see them. Like, their defense, I think, is gotten a lot better, and they're kind of comfortable with the pieces that they have. But I would be worried about Baltimore tonight. I took them to cover earlier in the week, but it's one of those things you see over the course of the weekend. You see how things are going in the NFL. Like, this could be a game that it's already been a wild weekend. I mean, I would not be surprised to see Indianapolis put up a really nice fight in this game. But at the same time, I think Baltimore ends up winning. Still, I think Lamar Jackson is just going to make enough plays for them to win, but it's going to be a tough one. Indy has a solid team all around. They're not like, overly, explosive offensively or, get a bunch of turnovers defensively, but they do just enough to win games or put themselves in position to win games.
Here's another reason to bet against me. It's been a trend now. It happens, and I need to go because it's happened a lot this year. I think it's happened every week, maybe except one. Okay. Here's a trend, and I'm really going to go look this up this week because it's getting ridiculous now. But if the favorite covers on Sunday Night Football, and I know they have nothing to do with each other, I'm just telling you what the trends are. If the favorite covers on Sunday Night Football, the underdog covers on Monday night, and vice versa. If the underdog covers on Sunday Night Football, the favorite covers on Monday Night Football. It's some weird, ridiculous trend that someone alerted me to last year, and I said they don't have anything to do with one another. And then I started watching, and it kept happening, and it kept happening, and it kept happening, and into this year, again, it's happening again. So if you're one of these believers in trends that don't have anything to do with one another, then that favors Baltimore tonight because obviously last night the underdog not only covered but won straight up and won easily. So, but I still think a great play tonight is I'd take Indianapolis for a unit or maybe even a unit and a half, and I'd take the other half a unit and I'd put it on an Indy money line. Who knows? But again, I've been awful this weekend. We'll see if it continues into Monday night. Let's go into baseball. We do want to talk before we get into the look ahead. Baseball, if you haven't noticed, and judging by the ratings, you haven't. Baseball has been outstanding these playoffs. Last night, I had the Red Sox, not the Red Sox. I had the White Sox and Astros on the second TV while I was watching the Kansas City game. And, man, it started off, looked like the Astros were going to close out that series. White Sox finally got into their hitting sense, and Yasmani Grandal just goes off, and all of a sudden White Sox get back in and win it. They give themselves a chance. They will play game 4 of that series later today. Red Sox with a dramatic win, controversial. I wouldn't say controversial because the rule is what the rule is. The ground rule double off of Hunter Renfroe that hit the wall, hit Hunter Renfroe, and then went over the wall when Tampa Bay clearly would have scored the go-ahead run in the 13th, and the Rays had a game-winning home run in the bottom half. And you got Braves and Brewers, the series tied at 1-1, and the late game tonight, Giants and Dodgers series tied 1-1. What has stood out to you, Devin? I know with all the football going on, you probably haven't kept a close eye on it, but it's been so exciting. I mean, people need to watch this. To me, it's one of the most interesting divisional playoff series, all 4 series that we've seen in a while.
Yeah, I think probably what stands out is the Red Sox. Leading the Rays 2-1, and they've found a way to get their offense going after being shut out in game 1. I think that's been the most impressive because I don't think many people gave the Red Sox a huge chance to beat the Rays. Them coming off, obviously winning the World Series last year. So I think that's been kind of the most surprising one. And then probably one to keep an eye out on is the Astros and White Sox, I think, because, the White Sox got that big win last night. And I think I saw that. I think the game today has been postponed to tomorrow because of weather delay. But I feel like the longer that series goes on, the less odds that the Astros end up winning. I mean, if they can't close it out now that it'll be tomorrow, I think you're playing with fire, and White Sox could just knock them out. So I was going to make fun of Zach today because I thought the series might have been over because he did pick the White Sox to win the series, but they're still in it. So I think it's been impressive that all the series, none of them are really down. Well, the Red Sox and Rays could be a potential closeout game, but the rest of the games are all pretty even. And you would think, someone would have swept somebody, but that's how good the baseball playoffs have been this far.
I like the Rays with their backs up against the wall. I'm not saying they're going to win the series, but if they can find a way to win today and send it back to Tampa, who knows? Not that Tampa is a great home field advantage, but to me, the one that sticks out is what happens in Game 3 of Giants-Dodgers here. To me, the Giants are my pick to win the World Series because they had such great odds. But if they can't beat the Dodgers, to me, in Game 3, they're in deep trouble. You cannot go down 2-1 in this just potent team that has a ton of just firepower, and their pitching staff is outstanding. So I know it's tough to beat Max Scherzer, but he hasn't been outstanding in the playoffs. So tonight's a big game for the Giants. Let's move on to the looking ahead and the week 7 in college football already. Hard to believe. Devin, what sticks out to you? I know what jumps out to me right off the bat is I know Georgia's good, but 22.5 against an undefeated Kentucky team that we don't know how good Florida is, I don't think. I think it's tough to tell how good Florida is. But Kentucky whitewashed LSU. I mean, that game was not as close as 42-21. Kentucky was clearly the better team. I hate to say it, clearly better coached, clearly a better quarterback, clearly a better run game, clearly a better defense. It's hard to say that. But, I mean, Kentucky, to me, I'm not saying they're this gangbusters type team, but I think they can be playing a bowl game in January.
Yeah, I mean, Kentucky, I think they have a good chance to make a pretty good bowl game. I mean, they're playing a really good brand of football. I believe it was like a Ram. Their offense coordinator was like a Rams assistant coach on their offense or something like that. Right. And they run kind of that pro style system. So they're able to run the football. I mean, I think it's going to be tough sledding against Georgia. I think 22.5 is just a lot. I mean, it is a lot. It just is. I mean, the way that Georgia's offense is scoring, like, I don't. It has me torn because we thought maybe Arkansas, kind of same situation that maybe they'll give Georgia a close game, and that ended up being a blowout. So I don't know. It's kind of, that's a tough one because, like, you can't really see it happening, but Georgia is very capable of making that happen. Just completely shutting down offenses.
Devin, I think part of it is the bookies and the odds makers are tired of people saying, you know what, I don't care what the spread is, I'm just betting on Georgia. So I think in a normal scenario, had Georgia not been covering every week, I think you might see a line more along the lines of like 17.5, 18.5, because that's what I thought it would be. But they're just saying, okay, you want to bet on Georgia, we're going to make an absurd line. You see it every now and then. A lot of times, though, the absurd lines, they still cover. So I'm not sure what you're going to see this week. I don't know how good Kentucky is either. But still, that is a crazy kind of line. We'll have to see going forward what our staff thinks. Florida at LSU, how can you even kind of think about taking LSU in anything right now? They can't stop anybody. They're having trouble scoring. They can't run the ball at all. I got to be honest. I don't think they're going to win another SEC game.
I tweeted on Saturday night. I don't think they even make a bowl game. Like I don't.
Yeah, I don't think that's it. I think the odds of them making a bowl game, if somebody gave me 5-1 odds on if they'd make a bowl game, I'd say no. I'm not betting that.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
think there's any
even.
way they make a bowl game.
Yeah, they might not. Like you said, they might not win another SEC game. I mean, they got Florida, they got Bama still, they got Ole Miss still, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. So I
They're
mean,
gonna wax.
I don't realistically see a win anywhere there. And their one win that they may get the rest of the season is UL Monroe. So I
Right.
mean, they're in a really bad situation. Like I feel like maybe they I don't even know. I can't even speak in maybes with this team because like you try to imagine a scenario where they can upset one of these teams, but you just don't see it.
It's really sad, to be honest, and not just because I'm an LSU alum, but it's sad to see where this program has gone in 2 years. And I love the guy. I think he's a great human being. But I gotta here's my bold prediction. They lose by 3 touchdowns this week, and they're gonna get clobbered. I mean, they're not just gonna lose; they're gonna give up 60-something points to Ole Miss. And I don't see how Coach O makes it past that because I think there's a legitimate chance they get embarrassed and I'm talking about just blown away embarrassed by Ole Miss. I don't care what the spread is in that game. I can tell, hey, lines makers, you can make the spread whatever you want. I'm taking Ole Miss in that game because I don't see any way that Ole Miss doesn't score 6 because Lane Kiffin's going to want to run it up against LSU. If he gets the chance to run up the score against a team like LSU, he's going to do it. And that's not going to be pretty. So,
yeah, well, I don't know if this is confirmed or not, but I just saw a report that Keishawn Butte might be out for the season. So, I mean, if the hits keep coming,
and Ali Gay's hurt too.
Yeah, so I mean, their top players are going down with injury. So I mean, they're getting to a point where it's just going to be just ugly from week in and week out.
Yeah, if you're Keishawn Butte, even if you don't have an injury that would particularly keep you out for the season, why would you come back? I wouldn't if I were him. And I hate that whole thing right now where players are deciding, I'm just not going to play or whatever and do what's best for them. And then they just drop out of school or whatever. I hate that. But in this case, I would completely understand. I wouldn't come back if I were him. Let's go ahead we're looking ahead real quick to NFL Week 6. Saints are off this week. So, the Hoodats can revel in their joy for at least 13 more days. But looking ahead, some of the things that strike me, Cardinals at Browns. The Cleveland Browns are -3. I guess it's time to stop thinking the Cardinals are not an outstanding team because yesterday they didn't just do it with offense. In fact, they didn't do it with offense. They did just enough on offense. But I thought the stop of Trey Lance on the goal line was one of the plays of the season, and it got really largely unnoticed. I thought the Cardinals played excellent defense yesterday. We don't know what we're going to get from the Browns. I'm not telling you what I'm going to pick because I really don't know as of right now. But that game sticks out to me, as does Chargers at Ravens. And I'm starting to think, look, I'm sold on the Chargers. I wasn't before, but the way they won yesterday proved they can play different kinds of games too. And I think the Chargers, everybody's on the Bills bandwagon. I think the Chargers might be the best team in the AFC.
They're definitely making their case. I mean, their offense is unstoppable, and they have a coach that isn't afraid to win games. I mean, you see a lot of these coaches like the Packers, Bengals. That game, you saw coaches where they were playing not to lose and settling for field goals. He's trying to go for touchdowns at the end of the game. So he's not trying to win by field goals. So to me, the aggressiveness of wanting to do that, plus their defense, I mean, I know they didn't look great, but they got stops when they needed to. It's kind of that bend, don't break mentality. When you have a talented offense, you don't need a whole bunch of stops to get going. So Chargers definitely making their case. I don't see how Baltimore is favored in that game.
Neither do I. I don't see that either.
So I don't see how they're 3. Like, I get maybe 2.5, 3, but 3.5. Baltimore hasn't showed enough for me to warrant that. I mean, you're a 4-1 Chargers team. I mean, they were a field goal away from beating the Cowboys. I mean,
right.
I don't see how that line came to be. I really don't see the Cleveland line per se either. I think both of those games are like, but then again, I don't know because the NFL's been
Well,
weird this year.
what the Ravens line is telling us is if they were playing on a neutral, I mean, because you're only really giving like 2 points. Now, it used to be you'd give like 3 points for a home team. Now it's more like 2.5 tops. So what you're saying is if they played this game on a neutral site, the Ravens would still be about a 1-point favorite. And if they played in LA, they'd be about a 1-point dog, maybe 1.5. And to me, that's silly. I mean, I don't think the Ravens are – I mean, it's just because of the Ravens. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, people maybe still aren't believing in the Chargers. So to me, this could be one of the value lines of the week. I'll have to look at that when I get into my NFL picks column later this afternoon and tomorrow. But I just think that's a little strange. Final thoughts before we close it up and wrap up odds and ends for week 6 of the college season and week 5 of the NFL season.
Yeah, I was going through my big bucks picks, and it was not a good week. I think I maybe won 2 or 3. Maybe
you had to bring that up. I thought we were going to go. See, Zach wasn't here. I'm like, good. We're going to go the whole show without talking about big bucks. But no, you had to bring it up.
Yeah, it's a bit of a disappointing week. It just didn't start off well because I missed the Arkansas State Coastal Carolina over under by 1 point. And they went up 52-20 with like 7 minutes left. So I was like, surely someone's going to get a field goal, someone's going to get a touchdown. Nope. So that kind of started off rough. And then San Francisco, I thought for sure like they're going to keep it within the field goal, and that was pretty much most of the game. But Arizona went out and scored after a 4th down miss by San Francisco, and then they settled for a field goal at the end of the game. So there are a couple games that were like just right there, but that's just how it goes.
Well, I talked about it in Datitude. That's coming up later this afternoon. If you're watching this on Monday, if you're watching it on Tuesday, then it's already up and you can go find it. But I talked about on Datitude that there was some boneheaded calls, just coaching calls, especially in the late window. So many strange play calls and weird decisions. And one of them near the top of the list to me was San Francisco is a 4th and 4 around midfield, trailing 10-7. Their defense has been absolutely lights out. There is zero reason to go for it right there. Your offense has scored 7 points all day. Arizona has been outstanding at stuffing you. And for some reason, Shanahan decided to go for it. He doesn't get it. Arizona goes right down the field. DeAndre Hopkins touchdown at 17-7 in ball game. And to me, if they decide to punt right there, not only am I like almost certain they're going to cover, and to me, this is the game that changed my whole week. Not only do they cover, but I think they went straight up, and I had them on the money line, and I had them with the point spread. So that kind of killed my week as well. But look, boneheaded coaches' decisions, you need to factor that in when you're trying to figure out what you're going to pick. A lot of times people don't think of that, but it certainly does fit in. So, right? I mean, college football is the same way.
Yeah, every week there's like, why did they decide to do that? But
yeah.
I honestly do think coaches need to have like coaches that manage the game for them, because they just every week it's something happens and it's like, why did you do that? Like the Browns game, like you talked about earlier, the running the ball 3 straight plays, like
yes,
and in that type of game you gotta go for the win, because I mean you can't get the ball back to the Chargers with
you would never see Sean Payton do that ever. Even if it was Jameis Winston or Drew Brees, or if Taysom Hill was in there or whatever, he would never just run the ball. Basically, you might as well if you're going to do that, take a knee. I mean, it doesn't mean you're risking fumbles. You're not going to get it. They're keying on the run. If you don't trust Baker Mayfield to get you a first down, you don't deserve to win. And really, you don't deserve to be called a great team. That's going to wrap up the show for us. Odds and ends. Again, Zach is under the weather, so we're filling in for him today. We hope he's back for the big show, Fantasy Roundup, with Zach and Spencer, the Guru Urquhart, on Tuesday. And then hopefully the gang will all be back together on Thursday for At the Book, featuring Cashing In with Carville. We'll see what James Carville does this week. Don't forget, you can get in on that contest. Just go to bet.NOLA.com and you can compete for prizes against James Carville. And then lastly, my Datitude podcast. Today we're going to have on we have on Luke Johnson from the Advocate and NOLA.com to talk about the Saints. And we also have Chris Blair, the voice of the LSU Tigers. And I'm sure, look, I got to thank him because I wouldn't want to come on and talk about LSU right now. And he's been a sport, and he's going to come on and talk this afternoon. But that's going to wrap up our show here today. For Devin Jackson, I am Jim Derry. We will see you on Thursday at the book.